Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to our session, our Zoom session. My name is Aida Mansour, and I am the coordinator of the Islamic Chaplaincy Program, and it's such a joy to invite you to here today. We have a distinguished and well-known speaker, Chaplain Shane Atkinson, and I'll just read to you his brief bio. So Chaplain Shane Atkinson is from Jackson, Mississippi, and spent 20 years caring for patients as a board-certified orthotic and prosthetic practitioner. He accepted Islam in 1999 and studied foundational texts in the Islamic sciences with traditional Sunni scholars. Shane entered the CPE program at UNC Medical Center in 2015 as the first Muslim in their chaplains department. He completed 4 units of CPE and now teaches in UNC CPE program and serves on their professional advisory group. Since 2015, Shane has served as Associate Imam at As-Salam Islamic Center at Raleigh, North Carolina. His dawah and racial equity work is featured in the 2018 PBS documentary, Red Deck Muslim, which I just saw, which is excellent. Shane was named as the recipient of the 2019 Muhammad Ali Spiritual Leadership Full Tuition Scholarship, congratulations, Shane, to support his graduate studies in the MDiv program at Bayan, Chicago. He currently serves as the Associate Chaplain for Muslim Life at Elon University. He is the founding director of the virtual Third Space Southern Hospitality Islamic Center. Moderating this session will be Dr. Bilal Ansari, who is the co-director with Dr. Yuskayev of the Islamic Chaplaincy program here at Hartford Seminary. Dr. Ansari is also the faculty associate of Muslim pastoral theology. So without further ado, Imam Ansari, Dr. Ansari, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm so happy to be blessed by our Lord with the opportunity to be here another day, still alive in this pandemic that we are experiencing in our health, and also has survived, 48 years and the racism like pandemic of America. So alhamdulillah, I'm also so grateful to be serving in ministry and the footsteps of our beloved messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I'm so happy that there's some esteemed guests with us from our alumni. I see some of our students, and so we're just happy to be here. Hartford Seminary has been very active this, I guess, summer. Basically, primarily, we've been having intentional conversations around the intersections of race and politics and like chaplaincy and care and healing, and this particular moment. And so we thought it would be interesting having a conversation with our brother, like Imam Shane. And so I'm just going to have I'm going to ask Shane 3 questions and like conversation. This is the regular pattern that we've been doing all summer with our guests. And then we'll leave it open for you, students, alumni, people of our community, to ask, like questions. So the first question that I have for our dear Imam Shane is, can you tell us a little bit about your path, your journey to chaplaincy? Yeah, how did you get there?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I think, well, I saw Dr. Ansari's documentary on PBS. I think it was called The Calling. That was about a year after my daughters passed away. So my wife and I had conjoined twins that passed away. And I think I saw a movie, New Muslim Cool, where one of the people in there was a chaplain. And then I saw The Calling, which Dr. Ansari was there, I think, in beginnings, her earlier on in his journey. And that really spoke to me, but definitely going through the experience with my daughters was a pivotal moment for me. And my encounter with a chaplain in the hospital, because when I reflected on this a few years later, I can't remember anything the chaplain really said, which I thought was really odd. I can't really remember that he gave me a pep talk or something like this. And I had just been studying. There's a teacher named Jamaluddin Haisaw who's in Atlanta, and we had been studying with him, and we were studying a text called the Tahawiyah. It's like a foundational work in theology, and we were going over that there's a reason behind what happens, that Allah cares for us, and there's a wisdom behind what happens. And we don't always know that in this life. So we were really getting steeped in that before I got the news about my daughters, because their prognosis was not good. They didn't think they would live maybe a minute or an hour. So I'm circling back to The Calling, because I hear, in CPE, people say, I felt called, and I could never really relate to that. But it's like the events in my life, just like having conversations about race. Anything that I've ever participated talking about race, someone invited me to have that conversation. I've never thought of myself as someone like, oh, I'm an expert to talk about this subject or that subject. But just looking at our life experience was what CPE and different training and chaplaincy really helps you kind of see in a little more objective way. Just the events that happened to me in my life, it kind of led me in that direction. I felt called in that direction. And then, really early on being in CPE, I felt like I'm here because I need to be healed. I say I want to help people, but I think a lot of this is for me. And the same way about doing the online, like third space work. I thought, a lot of this, I want to interact with other people and share with people, but a lot of it was trying to sort out and make peace with my past too. So, yeah, I think just the events of life kind of carved out a path in the rock, and then the water came, and it just flowed that way.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So you talked a little bit about your childhood and your events in the past. So can you tell us what it was like about your formation growing up in the South? A little bit about that. We can't hear you.
I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I'm still trying to figure this out. And in every discussion like this, it feels like another piece of the puzzle kind of falls into place. But it's definitely, I think it would take a while to unravel. But I think that the era that I was born in, I was born in 1970, and things were changing a lot. So I was thinking about this earlier today. Like my parents, they tried not to use like racial slurs. Like if they used a racial slur, they would try to catch themselves. But when I was younger, and they didn't want me to repeat it, but it wasn't because they thought it was something bad. It's because the time that I was coming up in, there would be pushback if you said those kind of things. You couldn't get away with saying those things anymore. So I remember Roots was on TV, and I remember being in elementary school, and there's always something new going around that all the kids are doing, or some phrase the kids are saying. So calling each other boy started going around the school, and I can remember I called a young black kid boy. I don't know, maybe we're in 4th grade, 5th grade, and he got really upset, but no one ever explained to me the background story of where we arrived, where we're at, because the side of town that I grew up on, I've gone to school my whole life with white and black people together. And I didn't know there were other white people, like from the suburbs, until middle school, you know? So I've always, even though my parents were definitely racist, I've always been pretty cool with everybody just because I'm from the same part of town. But it's an interesting time, and especially like I say in the film, and like you've mentioned in the title of our gathering today about the noose, like my grandfather showed me how to tie a noose when I was probably 11 years old or so, but he didn't tell me what to do with it, you know, but he was kind of explaining the physics and the metaphysics of it. And maybe he was gauging my reaction to it, you know, and he told me, you know, they thought the civil rights workers were buried such and such place in Philadelphia, Mississippi, but people knew they were there. So all this is going over 11-year-old's head. And I don't know if that was part of my inheritance, that I wasn't really in an environment to inherit that. Things had changed a lot really quick. But after making the documentary, I thought about some other things, like Eyes on the Prize was on PBS when I was a teenager. That was a huge piece of the puzzle for me, explaining how we got to where we were at, because I knew something was very, very off. And I felt like either I'm crazy or all my white family are crazy for the way they interact with other human beings of different hues, you know. But Eyes on the Prize was a really powerful experience to watch that series on PBS. Very eye-opening. And of course, the hip hop in the 80s, because we're doing a book group, right, where we're reading The New Jim Crow with AMC. And I been thinking about this, like, you know, Mos Def talked about almost everything in this book in a like a 4-minute song, and maybe it's 1999, I can't remember. But also being exposed to you know, some of that early music from the 80s and 90s that was very socially conscious and very justice oriented, really had a big impression on me. But what to do with all that, I've been pretty confused about what to do with all that for a while, you know. So definitely, yeah.
Can you talk to me about the Tazkiyah process of your own spiritual healing or work that you've had to do or have gone through, both in the traditional and also within clinical pastoral education? Talk to me a little bit about the Tazkiyah process, or the purification of one's heart and soul. Yeah.
Yeah, there was an event at one of the masjids here a couple of years ago, and it was celebrating the Urs, I guess, or the death date of a particular saint. And there was a imam there, and they were asking him, you know, should we go out into the jungle and do these harsh practices like he did to purify our hearts? And he said, you don't have to do that. And then there was kind of well, not exactly an argument, but so finally the imam said, well, look, you all can go live in the jungle. I'm going to stay right here and try to follow the prophet, peace be upon him. Just do that. That'll purify your heart. So yeah, I think having this model and trying to make your behavior prophetic, that can help you get back. Well, that can purify you, you know, because I think different groups like Buddhists, I think a lot of them have a strong connection to their fitra, but then they don't submit that fitra to the same moral code that we do, although they have their own moral code. But so yeah, coming back to whether you're connected to some spiritual tradition or not, which I'm not, but just understanding these practices of muraqabah and muhasabah, like to monitor your knee-jerk reactions to other human beings and to see, does that line up with what you profess to hold sacred? If you can keep doing that from moment to moment to moment, there's a lot of things that come up that you're going to have to deal with and try to reconcile within yourself, regardless of who you are, because we all have our own blind spots and egos and baggage that we have to work through. But learning about that practice, getting mentored by someone in that practice, I think has kind of been central. And we did have a retreat for, but there was just a few people came, but we did this at Masjid Al-Razak in Durham, which it was a Nation of Islam masjid, and the first masjid in North Carolina. But we did a retreat for white Muslims to heal from racism. And Muraqabah and was a part of this retreat where when we did expressive writing, we did different things, but we went out into to lunch. I intentionally wanted us to go out and interact with different types of people and then come back and talk about, as we practiced monitoring what was going on inside us, did anything come up that surprised us? And so we sat down and it was only white people. It was just a few of us, but we could speak openly about, because we were having a discussion like, was that racist? Is that racist? Or, and so the Muraqabah was a big part of that, that trying to hold yourself accountable, but having the prophetic model to try to hold yourself to,
Right. Well, thank you. Those are the three questions that I wanted to just start us off.
We started already?
So I just now going to open it up to anybody who would like to, to ask a question. I kind of wanted to kind of jump into those three areas to give you a lot of room to kind of ask from anything from what I've asked or anything. Yeah. So now I leave the floor open.
Can I just ask, Chaplain Shane, how when you converted to Islam, how did your family react to you becoming a Muslim? And were they very shocked, or what was their reaction?
So my grandmother was the most, I think, church-going person of the whole group. Now looking back on it, maybe my parents were more like secular humanists. They would call themselves Baptists, but they didn't really go to church that much. But they did try to instill in me, good values and morals. But I realized a big gift my father gave me was he told me to listen to both sides of any subject or argument and then go reflect on it and make up your own mind. So that's a huge gift, I guess, kind of being a little more of a blank slate religiously. But when I became Muslim, my grandmother told me, dear, it doesn't matter if you're a Hindu or a Buddhist, or if you're a Muslim or a Christian, as long as you accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior, it doesn't matter what religion you are. So I don't know if they totally got it to start with. But of course, there's a book that I found in CPE called Counseling the Culturally Diverse. I think it's Daryl Wing Sue, but in talking about, there's a chapter about developing a non-racist white identity. And I look at these stages that different scholars look at that white people, I think this book is written for counselors and trying to help them to be a better service to people. But I could really see some of these stages in this book that I felt like I've gone through and other people have gone through. But and I think it has to do, it's tied with your fitra, that when you wake up to that you're living in a system that's unjust and you've participated in things that are unjust, how do you cope with that guilt? So you can you can hide, you can retreat into whiteness and just not deal with it. Some people over-identify with the person that's being abused, with the group that's being abused. So I think a lot of the accepting Islam was, I believed in Islam, but it also, maybe in an unhealthy way, gave me a way to try to escape being white, or try to deal with the guilt of whiteness. So I say all that to say that I think I rubbed it in my parents' face a little bit. Like, we went to this kind of country restaurant one time and I had a huge green turban on, So I think part of it was, I'm thumbing my nose at them saying, like, I'm not like you. and I want to visibly reject this tradition. But at the same time, I did believe in Islam. So over the years, I think they saw a big improvement just in maybe my respect toward my parents. If it wasn't for Islam, I probably wouldn't speak to either one of my parents, you know. And I have a really good relationship with my parents now, and that's because of the teachings of Islam. So now my dad is he said he would become Muslim if he didn't have to stop eating bacon, you know. So we're telling him, just be a bad Muslim, just be a Muslim and eat the bacon, it's fine, you know. It's so yeah, both my parents are super open, but I think I mellowed out a lot too, and it took some time for me to stop trying to be confrontational and kind of separate these two issues: identity, you know, dealing with the guilt or dealing with being white, and then being Muslim. I'd kind of conflated those, and yeah, when I stopped trying to aggravate them, they're pretty cool with it, you know.
I got a question, Imam Shane.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you.
How was your acceptance in the Islamic community? Because when you became a Muslim and you went into the Islamic community, how was your acceptance?
I think I don't know. I guess it's very situational. It seems like, you know, there's I don't know who did this paper. I think it's a sociologist, but it's called "When the White Devil Joins the Deen," and she interviews like 40-something white converts, and she proposes this as white Muslims as like non-normative whiteness, because like if you put on a hijab and then you go to the Walmart in Burlington, North Carolina, you may get treated differently. You may realize like, oh, okay, people don't just make this up. Maybe people from other countries or people of color, people are abusive toward them, and you would have never experienced that without wearing that hijab. Or you may be in situations where people put you up on a pedestal and they treat you special, where the black person that converted doesn't get any attention. So I think I've experienced different. I think it's been situational depending on where I'm at. Most definitely, you know, I became Muslim with Imam W.D. Muhammad's community in Jackson, Mississippi, because I went to both of the masjids there, and I felt more at home at that masjid. I was the only white person there, but I had a lot more in common culturally with the people. But I did think about like why every sermon they're only talking about issues that black people deal with. It's not, you know, it's very focused on. And Imam Harisuddin, the Imam there was a social worker, you know. And then later I realized, like, we have to take care of each other. No one's going to come in. No one's looking out for the black Muslim community in Mississippi. If that community doesn't take care of itself, no one's going to do that. And so that's kind of what made me think, and also some conversations with Dr. Sherman Jackson about if I don't, even though I'm not equipped to do this, if someone doesn't look out for these Southern people, white people becoming Muslim, if we don't take care of each other, it can turn out bad. It can turn out where this is an identity, where this is people are very stiff and rigid in their Islam. So I feel like definitely with the community of Imam Muhammad, I've largely been accepted with open arms. And I just thought that what a miracle that I can come from my background. People were black nationalists, and my grandfather was teaching me how to tie a noose, and we're sitting together at the Jummah prayer, and you can tell that you can tell that we care about each other. That's a miracle. That's amazing. You know, that's a huge blessing. So.
So I hope the other young, inspiring, your people in the field recognize that if you are ministering to somebody in the military that's just become like a Muslim, or prison, these are some very precious jewels that were just shared here. So I hope you picked up on that.
Well,
And
go ahead, bud.
and I'm sorry, for those of you who don't know, Imam Saladin is one of my teachers in North Carolina. So that's why I'm saying it was nice to meet him. You know, I'm playing around with him. So
No, but I just wanted to say that I know a few white Muslims. I don't even like to say white Muslims, but I'm saying this because of the topic. And the ones that I know, they don't come across to me as being white. And I'm saying that because white is an attitude. It's a certain attitude that certain white people have had in terms of dealing with the whole racism thing. So when a person embraces the faith, they may have to deal with some of it because of the privilege piece that comes along with being white in this country. But, I just see him as my Muslim brother or my Muslim sister. And I'm not saying that's a white Muslim. Shane is very much a part of the community. He actually teaches a class, and he has a bunch of old people, the elderly people, I say, in the class that's really still interested in learning. And they accept him, no problem. They accept he's a Muslim, right? Whereas I know in some places, people look at you kind of strangely because they want to know, is he an Asian or something, And that hasn't been our experience with him. And I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking about Sharif Rosen, Chaplain Sharif Rosen. I see him as a Muslim, and I respect him as such. And so I don't see him as quote unquote white devil. Because again, if you look at what Malcolm was saying, that's an attitude. That's a real attitude. It's not so much dealing with flesh, it's an attitude. Do you agree with me, or can somebody else say something about that?
it helps to be white and a character, I think. But no, I think I've met some white Muslims that are, I don't know, it's maybe Islam has the potential to help you work on stuff. But some people think because I'm Muslim, there's no way I can be racist. And that's one thing I don't think that I would not say I'm not racist. I would say I aspire to be not racist, and that's wrong. And I don't want to be like that. But like we were talking about trying to monitor what comes up in you. This is a heck of a job that gets done on you being socialized in this country, whether you intellectually understand it or not. There's a lot of layers to this onion that you have to keep working on and have to be vigilant with. So, but I'm starting to understand maybe some of this, I should say, A'udhu Billah instead of Astaghfirullah. Maybe some of this is whispers. This is not coming from me, but it's like it has the potential. But I do see some white people that say some pretty racist things, and they think because they're married to a black person that racism evaporated out of their body, or because they said the Shahada, it evaporated out of their body. But like I said, but we've all got our issues we've got to work on and struggle with. But yeah, for sure, a lot of the white people I've met that are Islam has helped them work through race, for sure.
I see that Chaplain Omar Badro has a question. Go ahead, Chaplain Omar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Jazakumullah khair to Heart Temple. Thank you so much to Bilal and Chaplain Aida for Chaplain Imam Shane for being with us today and sharing your story. And in fact, so much of what people have said have sparked different ideas that I wanted to share, but I'll try to sort of connect the last two threads. One is from Imam Salahuddin, and then with the last comment that Chaplain Shane made, which is this, is that, just real talk amongst friends, right, is, I identify as a person of color, or I'm identified as a person of color, right, as a brown Muslim, and I want to believe, like as was said before, this life is a continual process of tarbiyah and tazkiyah, right, of self-purification of the soul and of the mind and the body. Having said all of that, to the point that Shane said is that, it's not enough to not be racist. I need to learn how to be anti-racist, right? I understand that intellectually, and my lens how to live that out. What I think is I have Muslim convert friends, and what they have confided in me is that, and maybe this is a generational thing, there's a lot of young, really smart, very woke, critical race theory, top to bottom, drink it, sleep it, live it, Muslim activists, that there's like an inherent suspicion of white Muslims. I mean, that's what my white Muslim friends have said to me, is that like, whenever they're in spaces with black Muslims, there's always like a side eye. Whereas if a brown person or a black person said something, it'd be like, oh, that's super, you got it. But then a white person, a white Muslim says it and they're like, I don't know about that. There's a layer of suspicion. And so that breaks my heart, because they're coming to me as a brown guy in the middle, because I'm not black, I'm not white. So they can confide to me. And I'm like, well, I see why some of our black Muslim activists are like, we don't trust the system. And, you know, if you're white, does your whiteness overcome your Islam? And is that like, how does that even work? So, I mean, there's maybe this isn't well articulated, but I'm just kind of sharing what I have held as their pain, because then they want to come to me for pastoral care, right? And I know that they're not saying racist things, but the community of Muslims is still suspecting them as being inherently racist because they're white. And so, to Imam Salahuddin's point, I would love to believe that racism is an attitude, but then it's a deep attitude that, like, you know, how does one do super tazkiyah for all of us to, you know, get rid of the racism? I mean, I don't know. It's an open-ended question, comment. So I just put that out there. It's what's been on my heart lately.
I mean, I think I'll jump in here a little bit. So I think, like Imam Shane for bringing up that, like, it's something to say that I'm not racist is making a claim, you know. So spiritually, you're gonna be tested, like on that. As soon as you open your mouth to make that claim, you're gonna be tested. And racism has different layers. There's what you are complicit in, there's something that's implicit, and something that's just explicit in you know, forms of racism. And there's things, there's the racism of privilege, of you get a special pass, you know, you have an immunity, you know, to things. And so sometimes you can be around black people and you may not acknowledge your like immunity of a certain thing, and that may trigger a suspicion that you are totally unaware of, and you're like, why does this person not trust me? Why am I getting a side eye? Because there's layers and levels of racism that you're not unaware. So I would counsel those people that are coming to you, always suspect yourself. Like, this is great spiritual advice. Why don't we accept the same thing when it comes to racism? Always suspect yourself and always question yourself. Dig deeper, so that you know, if it's not there, then alhamdulillah. But you should be constantly doing, as Imam Shane said, constantly taking yourself to account. You don't, and that's a heavy, deep, you know, like a, like a, like work, that we all have to do. Yeah, I'm married to a white woman, and so we have these like these are like conversations all the time, and there are layers that I think she comes aware of, like each year. There's something new revealed about you know, racism, and yeah, so yeah, it's something that we should always don't trust yourself. You know, that's sound advice.
Chaplain Sharida Hussein asks the question, how can AMC, the Association of Muslim Chaplains, become a better organization to support converts? Or are we doing a good job, she asks.
I mean, so I think this is not an AMC meeting. This is a Hartford, you know, seminary meeting. But um,
She did not just now. but how can we be better as Hartford Seminary, as you know, all of us, how can we be better?
So I think that like I think Shane. I mean, what do you think? I mean, you have made that like transition, but I think you mentioned some very insightful things. If you can just run us through, like, what do you think of some good things to be mindful of when you have like a new shahada?
Yeah, I'm kind of joking, but I kind of have told people I refuse to answer that question anymore, because if people cared enough, they would do something about it. But I think it's definitely tied into what we're talking about. Like, never be pleased with never think you've arrived, you know. So yeah, how do we, because usually people talk about we need to mentor these people, we need to pair them with somebody. Where are the people with the beautiful character to pair them with is the issue. So like, yeah, I think as long as we don't let ourselves off the hook and we keep working on that, maybe we could be better mentors to people or better friends to people as they become Muslims. But it's kind of scary. Yeah, where are we overflowing with people that they have their stuff together and they take themselves to account and they're going to be a healthy mentor for this person? I don't know. I'm struggling myself. But I wanted to mention something about Omar's what he shared too. It's kind of paraphrasing Ibn Attillah. If we think,
he held my hand, but my hand was dry, and then my hair was red, and then I said, and then he was like, "Oh, your hand is dry," and then I said that, like, because my hair is swollen.
Whoever's name is
And then I
Muhammad.
said, and I was talking to my friend, I said, my hair is just really itchy. He's like, yeah, your dry hands won't make it better.
am I unmuted? You can hear me now. No, just part of this for this person, not coming to you for care, because you can start to question yourself, because people are saying, is this white fragility? Are they wanting to be treated special, or is this? But if this is from Ibn Attillah, paraphrasing, like, if you don't think Allah can take someone and in a second make them a saint, you're underestimating God's power. So that's part of it. Don't give up on yourself and realize how powerful Allah is. Not that we want to think that we're going to be saints or whatever, but people are redeemable, you know. And then also, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to impress Black people? Do you need Black people to accept you? You know, this is for the sake of Allah. This is because this is right. This is because it's the truth. And this is kind of what because I have some people, and I feel like they always, what Dr. Bilal was talking about, side eye, and maybe I deserve it. Perhaps I don't, you know, but that's, you know, I'm going to keep trying to work on myself, but I'm not doing it so they don't look at me with a side eye. This is, I want to please God, and I want to try to help humanity. I want to try to be of service to people, and I want to do what's right, and I want to be true to my soul. So regardless, are they is it their issue why they're looking at them that way? Is it a hidden issue in his heart why they're that way? It's really about you and Allah. It's not, I don't know. Maybe we have to look back at our intention, you know, hit reset on the intention button. But I was just thinking about that recently with a relationship I have with somebody, and I kind of realized it doesn't. On one hand, it doesn't. I need to get clear. This is between me and God, you know, not pleasing that person. And hopefully if it's something that I'm doing, hopefully I can grow and work on it too. But we all have issues. We all have egos and blind spots, you know.
I remember in terms of what you were saying, Dr. Ansari, that the Prophet ﷺ had told Hudhayfa who the hypocrites were. And basically he told to him, and he didn't give it to everyone. And some people knew that he knew. And it was a case where Umar had come to him, and he said, "Am I one?" He asked the question, "Am I one?" And just think about that. This is the man that, I mean, his history in terms of what he did, in terms of the advancement of Islam, he's asking that question. So yeah, I don't think any of us should ever feel like we have arrived. So we should be questioning ourselves. So I agree 1,000% with that.
Especially if you live long enough, right? You start looking back and what you did 3 years ago and thought, oh, I thought I did it for this reason. And what? I did it for that reason. I didn't even see it. So yeah, trying to have some practice, having this interwoven into your practice where you're trying to, maybe it's at the end of the day, maybe it's muhasabah at the end of the day, and you look over what you did and take yourself to account. But some of this, because what Imam Saladi in the book that he mentioned, we're studying Treaties for the Seekers of Guidance. It's Imam Zaid's translation. So we've been working on this book for 2 years. So we're just finishing. But a lot of this book is about monitoring yourself, taking yourself to account before you're taken to account. So it's interesting as you live and you look back and you see yourself a little clearer and clearer and clearer. But to the Ibn Attillah, like, don't give up hope on yourself too. You know, this is at the core of chaplaincy, I guess, too. Like, even if it was his fault with the side eye, don't give up on yourself. You're redeemable. And our path is one that really offers that to everybody.
We have somebody named Sister Maya. Sister Maya, what you got for us? Do you have a question?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is actually, I'll turn my camera on. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for inviting me to this discussion, Sister Aida. I have to confess I wasn't able to concentrate on every word. I was feeding 3 kids at the time, but we've been listening in, and this is a very important discussion. Obviously, it's a very timely discussion. And I guess one of the questions that I had, and forgive me if it's already been asked, is, I guess, going back to the idea of pairing, not just with converts, but with different groups of Muslims. And maybe it doesn't relate to chaplaincy as much as it does for leaders in mosques. But the mosques that I go to, oftentimes you see certain ethnic groups just forming their own circles. And then for converts, but also anyone who's not part of those specific groups can feel left out. It also doesn't encourage the beautiful sentiment that Chaplain Shane mentioned earlier, where you have people of very diverse backgrounds praying side by side. So we've accomplished the fully mixed prayer, but what I want to know is how can we really accomplish a fully mixed community where you have meaningful relationships across ethnic, racial lines, convert, non-convert, because that to me has not happened everywhere, at least.
May I jump in here? I know for a long time, this was one of my struggles. And I've only think I've come to a place of, being at ease with it all, because I started to question the longing for that. Where was it coming from, and what was it what was it going after? And I have come to the conclusion that I have equated it to worshiping my Lord for states or feelings, like trying to get that that original high when you first made your you're like shahada, or you first got into the deen really strong. It's that certain high that you're always trying to chase, and worshiping God for that moments, for those feelings. for those states, and that's not what we're supposed to do. That's not the purpose of like worship. We're supposed to be worshiping for for God alone. Um, and so I have found that if I make my intention, as Chaplain Shane said, if I renew my intention every time for God alone, He facilitates those linkages, those bridges, those feelings, those states, um, and they're sweeter, and they're more sustainable. They sustain longer than the ones that I may have used charm or used means from this world to kind of try to create those type of things. I find they're exhausting and they don't really last. But the ones that I go in and I leave it all up to my Lord, that those are the ones that last, and are really the most meaningful. And so anyway, that's just where I have come with that, because as a convert I was looking for that for a long time, and I struggled with that until I equated it to um my worship. So are there any other questions for how do you find your life? Because I believe we are called for our ministry and the particular work. How do you find the formation of your life and your journey to be fruitful for your current ministry, where you are on the college campus, down in the South? You're at one of the elite schools down in the South. How has your life formation journey been really fruitful, and beneficial, for your work?
I think partially because it's a predominantly white school, and we don't have a large population of Muslim students and staff. So a big part of why I'm there is to expose these students, who some of these people we feel they may be future leaders. We want them to have a more realistic experience of what a Muslim is. So um, I think being a white person and then being white, it helps bridge. There's already something in common before we start talking about what we don't have in common. It took me a while to realize that I'm not just there for the Muslims. I'm also there for the non-Muslims, to interact with them, to do educational things, and then also in that role, expose them to brilliant people. Like as Dr. Suad Abdul Kabir said, you don't have to speak for the people without voice, just pass the mic. So that's, since I've got there, that's something that I've tried to do, like bring in like Mohammed Mendez, or we had Haj Noordin come and do calligraphy, and we had Brother Ali come one year, and Dr. Suad was there last year. And so also expose them to all the different beauty in the Muslim world through art and music and activism. So, but yeah, I think having a similar background as many of the students, it maybe allows me to connect with them, and then invite them to learn more, to explore more.
How has your supervisory mentoring um, helped you grow as a chaplain, both in your CPE experience and your recent experience in Elan? Because you happen to work with one of the kind of elite, the elect of of the of the like chaplains in the field of higher education. She's well known in the field. How how has her shepherding of you help you grow?
Yeah, that's interesting. We were checking in students for school. So everyone had to have a COVID test. And then when they showed up on campus, we're standing away from them. We all have masks on. We have to check their temperature. There's this whole thing they have to do before we let them on campus. And someone was saying that they had seen me a few years ago. We have a series called Winter Faith during J term, where we partner with a local church. And each week we have a lunch with the church community and the students, and we explore different traditions. So of course there are not a lot of Muslims on campus. I was doing the presentation on Islam, and I was trying to figure out what to do because everyone had PowerPoints, and so Dr. Bilal's referencing Jan Fuller is who's over the Truett Center, and she said, just recite the Fatiha. You know, everyone else did all these long presentations and stuff. So I was there working on this PowerPoint. And then it's like there's a little thought bubble, and I was seeing her. She's like, so I played a recording of someone calling the Adhan. I think it was in a cathedral. So there was like a Jewish brother, a Catholic brother, and then I just recited the Fatiha, and then I had a dialogue with these people. And again, I guess a lot of the people at the church were white, Southern people. So being able to speak their language was very helpful. But I have to give the first, I guess, kind of chapel. It's called Newman Lumen, but it replaced chapel. Somehow I got stuck with doing the first one of the year. And so I showed this to Jan Fuller today, and she pointed out some of the things that where I was missing. But I think part of it, her calling us to connect with what we have in common with people, and just to always assume that the person doesn't have knowledge about this. I wish I could say more, but I think a big point is assuming that the people don't have a lot of knowledge about the subject, because I forget that all the time. I've been Muslim for so long, I just assume people would know basic things. And we can get into more elaborate things as it progresses, but I need to approach people as if they're not experts on Islam just because they're on a university campus and they're a professor or they're a CPE supervisor, whoever it is, you know. But with CPE, definitely my supervisor made us work. Like UNC has a reputation for being a hard program, and they would not give us the answers. They really, you really had to work for any insight you got. But I think both of them, Randy Hall was my supervisor, he's a Baptist minister, and Reverend Fuller, both of them helping me get over this mindset. So in Mississippi, if you're a working class person, there's a certain self-doubt or there's something about class in Mississippi. Mississippi is a very poor state. So it's hard to shake that off. It's hard. I was just thinking about this. I have to write Tahara Akmal. I still have to do a paper for her. And I was just thinking about it. I was like, man, you got this. Because I don't think I can do it. And a lot of that is really, it's in the air in Mississippi, that you cannot become anything. You can't achieve anything. White or black people, maybe more understandably for black people, but a lot of white people, it's just so thick in the air that you can get out of your situation. So I think both of them kind of helped me. They believed in me and saw the good in me and tried to lift me up and encourage me. So I think that's a huge thing that I've got from them, that I can rise to the occasion.
Does anybody have any other questions, final questions before we?
Sharita says she has to go at 7:30, right at 7:30 to another meeting. So I just wanted to mention this really quick, but she said something very important. I think that it is our responsibility as chaplains to help the Muslim community, whether it be individuals who are so-called superstars or imams or whatever you want to call them that have not given or not put the sisters in the light that they should be in. Because our community has both men and women in it, and it should be reflected in everything that we do. And in many cases, it has not been reflected, and it's always been through that masculine version of Islam, even the way they began to explain certain things. So I believe those of us who know, we have a responsibility to get that out to people until they recognize that if in fact we don't give our sisters their due, then we're going to be unbalanced. We're going to be tipped over, and it's not going to be balanced, because in reality, there are more women, Muslim women, than Muslim men. That's what the Hadith says. It's going to come a time when it's going to be that. So if they are disenfranchised, then that means that we are not balanced, and we're not going to be balanced. So I think it's our responsibility to do that, sis. I wanted to say that before you left.
We love you, Sister Sharita. Deep. Pioneer.
Dr. Jamila Kareem is going to be our next speaker at Elon, inshallah.
That's good.
Because every year I draw from her talking about lifting up Hagar, So I said, why don't I just try to get her? She was going to come, but now we're going to record something. But yeah, for if you're in my position, to pass the mic to people, not try to speak up on behalf of people, but give these brilliant people the mic. And Dr. Suad was amazing. She touched a lot of people last year with her. She did, it was kind of performance art. She did part of her one-woman show, and she did a lecture. And it was very powerful for the people. Some people are going back to grad school now, and it was really powerful. So I agree wholeheartedly with both of you.
Yeah, I think a lot of chaplains post George Floyd have been really trying to center marginalized voices, both Black and also the women voices, more so, giving them like a platform to give voice and meaning and lived experience, to this time. So I think that is becoming more normative. So, alhamdulillah. So it's 7:29. If there's no further questions, I want to thank my coordinator, Sister Ida, for doing a wonderful job with the logistics and pulling this all together. I want to thank my partner, Dr. Timur Yuskayev, for being the brainstorm and creating the title and everything. We are thought like partners in all of this. And thank also the alumni of Hartford Seminary and the students who have attended this program. Your presence are always valued and beloved to us. Thank you for your presence. If you have any ideas on what you would like to see, who you like to see speak, please shoot those to myself or Sister Ida, and we will be happily to reach out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.